August 17th, Monday morning, I had called my wife. I told her I wasn't feeling well. She told me she thought I should go to the hospital.
He said he was sweating profusely. Something was wrong.
And then I'm driving. I had to pull over. I couldn't go any further.
I called one of his co-workers, John, because I was worried about him.
He found me on 80th and 2nd Avenue. He seen I was in bad shape. He took me the rest of the way to New York Presbyterian Hospital, where I went right into the emergency room.
You could see by his body language that he didn't look too good. He just didn't, you could just tell. He came in, he just kept saying that he didn't feel good, and just turned around for 2 seconds. And there he went.
It happened so fast. As soon as we got him in there, he collapsed, assisted him to get on the stretcher, and they started working him up right away.
And I was notified that there was an arrest coming in from triage, a patient who walked in and collapsed in triage. So we took the patient into the trauma room and we immediately started CPR because he had no pulse.
As soon as he got here, everyone from the nurses to the techs to the students to the residents, everyone was working on him immediately. And it was probably one of the best acts of teamwork I've ever seen in this emergency department.
I remember as I was providing him with high quality CPR, I would look at him and I would sort of be cheering and rooting for him in my head, telling him, "Come on, Joe, come on."
For 47 minutes, he didn't have a pulse, but we didn't give up on him. We kept working on him. We had help from other doctors, other departments.
It's what we do all the time, and it just, we have a great team, and it just went together really, really nicely.
There was nothing they wouldn't try. They threw everything against the wall until it stood. And it worked. They brought me back.
We were actually all cheering. I know I was tired, but I was just so hopeful.
We brought him back. We got his pulse back, his heart rate, and they went to the cath lab.
Dr. Feldman told me he had removed the blood clot. It was a very large blood clot. And Dr. Kim brought me to this little room, and again, they were very kind and nice and comforting.
He was not out of the woods, immediately, although the most important thing, which was to open up the artery, had been done. But really, over the next 72 hours, it was still touch and go for a long time.
When I got to the hospital, I saw my brother crying, and so I was like, wow. I saw my entire family in the waiting room. And my aunt, she just grabbed me, and she got really close to me, and she just told me what had happened, and I really just went into complete shock. And I just went straight to my brother, and I tried to comfort him. And yeah, that's really it.
First, we didn't really know how serious it was until we walked into the room and saw all the different machines around him, and it was just tough to watch.
I guess she was the head resident. She came over and she was explaining everything. She looked very calm, so it made me feel better about it.
We were hoping for the best. His family was incredible at his bedside, and very, very patient and understanding.
I could hear voices. My son told me, "Dad, I should stay here and hang in, and when I'm better, we'll get a chance to do these things that we haven't had the chance to do."
They took care of him in a way that, just from looking from the outside, they just did everything right.
It's right around the 48 to 72 hour mark is when he started to turn for the better. We managed to get some drips off, and we managed to get the balloon pump out, and then he just took off. He just started recovering, and it was amazing to behold.
But thanks to this hospital, that they just don't stop in making sure that you're okay, and in doing so, they did a brain scan, and they found out that I had an aneurysm.
He's an incredibly lucky individual, very fortunate, but we were also able to mobilize all the resources that we have available to us here to treat the aneurysm.
You feel like you're part of their family. You feel like it's a family member taking care of you.
It makes me feel great. I mean, a man could go back home to his family and kids.
You want to express to everyone that you're part of that team, and you're just proud of that.
Being around such positive energy people, because every one of them was so nice. Everyone. You feel happy to be around that. I mean, it certainly helped me.
To be where he is now is incredible. It makes everything we do worth it. I mean, this is why you become a nurse.
I couldn't be more grateful to every one of you doctors here.
Your success has changed the way so many doctors look at this disease in this hospital, and has really helped the cooperation with us in the emergency department and the cardiac cath lab and the nurses. I mean, there was a huge team of people that took care of you and worked together flawlessly, and now because of your success, we're working together even better now to make this program even better than it already is.
It's just amazing how you all work like it's one team.
It's almost like a symphony. It's a joy to behold. You know, people anticipate each other's moves. They know their parts, and they interact. And in the end, the patient benefits. And it's
beautiful. I know that it was the doctors from New York Presbyterian and the many nurses, and the reason why I'm alive today. They gave me the chance to spend time with my family, continue my life. I'm truly indebted to this hospital.
How many people really know what causes a heart attack? Most people think they'll recognize the warning signs, but I've got news for you. They're wrong. 50% of people have no warning pain at all, and women often feel less pain and more nausea than men. And most importantly, half the people having heart attacks die from the injury. Now let's take a look at exactly what happens when you have a heart attack. On this illustration, you see the general schema of the heart. And these are the red arteries that give blood that nourishes the muscle. If we pretend we're going into this artery, as we dive in, we see the surface vessels. And here are the endothelial cells, these little white structures. This is a fatty plaque. Many of you already have these because we find them in even teenagers. As this fatty plaque begins to grow from bad diet and other bad habits, it becomes irritable. And as it becomes irritable and becomes larger, the red cells bounce off it and they rupture it. After it's ruptured, it's very thrombogenic. So platelets and fibrin, which are these little cement blocks, line up with the platelets and they make a clot. And clots are dangerous. Clots are what kill people, not necessarily the plaque. Once the clot's there, it begins to suck in red blood cells. Now remember, this big lumen gets smaller and smaller, and you're about to witness what kills more Americans than anybody else. Kaboom! Once it closes off, the blood can't go anywhere. And the muscle that was perfused, that was fed by this blood vessel, is no longer there. Most of you know that exercising, eating a healthy diet, and quitting smoking can decrease your risk of heart disease. But did you know that years of bad habits can actually be reversed? I recently sat down with cardiologist and nutrition expert Dr. Dean Ornish, who talked about the importance of a low-fat, plant-based diet in reversing heart disease. Dean, thank you.
Great to see you, Mehmet.
It's great to see you. Thank you very much for making time.
Oh, my pleasure.
You've always impressed me because you've very nicely ridden the academic machinery required to prove some of the things you've done. At the same time, you've been able to convey a lot of your thoughts to the average American. What is the most important thing about your diet? You've got lots of things in there, but what really is the key element to it?
The diet is really based on not giving you things that promote disease, like cholesterol, saturated fat, oxidants, and so on. But it's not only what you exclude, but also what you include in your diet that's important. And there's increasing research showing that there are at least 1,000 substances that help to prevent against cancer and heart disease and even to slow the aging process. Things like phytochemicals, bioflavonoids, carotenoids, retinols, isoflavones, genistein, lycopene. There's a whole alphabet soup of these. And where do you find them? With few exceptions, you find them in fruits, vegetables, grains, and beans. So the diet gives you a double benefit. You reduce your intake of substances that promote disease, and you get lots of others that are actually protective.
I talk to people about diet all the time, and the big beef, the big complaint about your diet is that America can't do it. Can America do your diet? Can America cut down the amount of fat intake as much as you require?
Right. You know, the old joke is, am I going to live longer, or is it just going to seem longer if I eat this way? And unfortunately, that's not the case. And let me first clarify. I would love to be able to tell people that eating bacon and sausage and high-fat foods can reverse heart disease, but they don't. And so my role is simply to tell people what's true.
And what we try to explain is that, first of all, there are different versions of the diet. If you're trying to prevent disease, you don't have to be so strict. You know, it's about the ounce of prevention instead of the pound of cure. You can customize a diet that's really based on your own needs and preferences if you don't have heart disease. But if you do have heart disease and you're trying to reverse it, and it's probably true for some forms of cancer as well, it takes big changes. But when you make big changes in diet and lifestyle, in some ways it's actually easier than making small ones, even though that sounds a little nutty, because when you make big changes, most people find they feel so much better so quickly. It reframes the reason for making these changes from, you know, risk factor reduction and prevention, which is boring for most people, you know, to feeling better. And so I don't tell people what to do, because I've learned even more than being healthy, people want to feel free and in control. But I do tell people the facts so they can then decide what they want to do. And the facts are that moderate changes are not enough to reverse heart disease, but big changes often are.
For decades, heart disease was considered a man's disease, but what many people don't realize is that each year heart disease kills more women than men. And because of this misperception, women with heart issues sometimes don't get the diagnoses or care that they need. Let's go to Mayo Clinic, where doctors are trying to change that.
Well, actually, I didn't know I had any heart problems until I had my heart attack.
But Sharon Fellerson, who was adopted as a child, did know that her birth mother had heart trouble.
She ended up with 2 heart attacks and a 6 bypass.
So with a family history like that, why didn't Sharon realize she was at risk? One reason could be that for decades, heart disease was considered a man's disease. The truth is, heart disease is the #1 killer of both men and women. 1 out of 4 women will die of heart disease. But research shows that men tend to do a whole lot better when it comes to diagnosis and treatment.
Women tend to be diagnosed later in the course of their disease, and once they do get diagnosed, they tend to do more poorly than men in their outcomes.
There are several reasons for this. Doctors may not be vigilant about treating risk factors for women. Women may have different responses to treatment than men, and some women, like Sharon, simply don't realize they're at risk.
The biggest message is that women should be talking to their doctor, their primary care doctor, about what they can do to prevent heart disease, what signs and symptoms they should be aware of.
Women should know that not all heart attacks cause chest pain. Other symptoms include pain that radiates to your jaw, shoulder, or arm, nausea, vomiting, and intense sweating. If you have symptoms or any chest discomfort that just doesn't go away, call 911.
Better safe than dead.
Dr. Hayes says there is currently much research underway to determine why women don't do as well as men and what can be done about it. She also says things are improving because more women and their doctors are learning about the realities of women and heart disease. For Medical Ranch.
I am Dr. Holly Anderson.
I'm Dr. Mehmet Oz.
Sometimes people who are having heart attacks don't know they're having heart attacks. The Hollywood version of crushing, intense chest pain is not the norm. Symptoms are often more mild and can start slowly. But most often, people know something's wrong.
So there are 3 symptoms you want to remember. The first is a chest discomfort that Holly mentioned, like an elephant is sitting on your chest. Typically, this happens during physical activity, so it warns you that it's from your heart. Secondly, you can get discomfort in other parts of the body. Do you know why? The heart doesn't really have sensory fibers. It doesn't know it's having pain. It just has nerves coming out of it. It crosses other nerves when it hits the spine, and it shorts those nerves out. So you can get referred pain, like you have ulcer disease or a toothache or even a problem in your wrist. So if you're getting the pains while you're physically active, always think it's your heart. And finally, you got to worry about shortness of breath, because it means the heart is not able to pump the blood forward, so it's backing up into your lungs. Typically, something that happens if you're not having enough blood supply go into your heart. That's an important warning sign.
Remember, women are much more likely to present atypically with their heart attacks. 45% of women experiencing a heart attack do not have chest pain. They are more likely to have pain elsewhere, like Dr. Oz said, in the jaw, in a tooth, in their neck or a shoulder, or just feel shortness of breath, or this overwhelming sense of fatigue.
So here's the big story. If you're not sure if you're having a heart attack, call 911, because time is muscle and you can't afford to waste any.
and we at New York Presbyterian Hospital have the world-class expertise. We are here 24 hours a day, poised to diagnose and treat your heart disease. If you think you're having symptoms of heart disease, call 911. Don't wait. Time is muscle.
How you act and react to chest pain may just help save your life. There's all sorts of causes of chest pain out there, but the one we worry about the most is chest pain caused by a heart attack. Now, most of my heart attack victims tell me they have a very unusual or different feeling than they expected. They tell me their chest pain is a heaviness, pressure, or tightness on their chest. They feel like there's an elephant standing on their chest, or that there's a band tightening around their chest. So it's a tightness or pressure that they're usually feeling. Now, this pressure may stay in the chest or it can radiate. It can go to the left arm, it can go to the right arm, it can go to the neck or the jaw. There's oftentimes associated symptoms with this chest pressure. You may feel short of breath, you may be nauseous, or may feel just clammy or weak. If you're having these symptoms, it's a medical emergency and you or a loved one should call 911. Now be aware, women, diabetics, and senior citizens don't always have these typical heart attack symptoms. So if you're not sure, always err on the side of caution.
What causes a heart attack? A heart attack, or myocardial infarction, means that there is death of some of the heart muscle. This is caused by a blood clot blocking an artery and resulting in a lack of blood supply. As we get older, the smooth inner lining of the heart arteries becomes damaged and thickened due to the accumulation of fatty material called atheroma, made up predominantly of cholesterol. This process is known as atherosclerosis. Previously, it was thought that a progressive narrowing in the coronary artery caused heart attacks. It is now clear that this process can sometimes occur in coronary arteries that have minor narrowings when cracks or fissures develop in plaques. The exposed damaged inner lining of the coronary artery wall causes blood cells called platelets to stick to the damaged area and start the formation of blood clots within the artery. These blood clots prevent the flow of blood, vital for the heart muscle to survive. If the artery is blocked for more than a few minutes, the muscle cells beyond the blockage may become permanently damaged. It remains unknown why heart attacks happen when they do, sometimes affecting people who seem to have been perfectly well. Certain factors are known to increase the risk of having a heart attack. Smoking, family history of heart disease at a young age, high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol levels, lack of physical exercise, diabetes. The heart muscle that is injured by this blockage may become irritable and can cause irregularity in the heart rhythm. This can be fatal by causing a cardiac arrest, even when it appears that very little heart muscle has been damaged. This is why it is very important, if you think you are having a heart attack, you should call for an ambulance. If having taken GTN, 2 puffs at 5-minute intervals up to 15 minutes, your symptoms have not resolved, you should call an ambulance without delay. The damaged heart muscle eventually heals with a scar, but may not be able to pump quite as much as it did before. In the majority of patients, however, there is enough good muscle left for the heart to function adequately and for recovery to be complete.
After your
heart event while you recover at home, you'll have plenty of time to think about areas in your life you may want to change. This chapter explores how small changes in eating and exercise habits can make a big difference to your recovery and help reduce your risk of developing further coronary heart disease. Eating a healthy, well-balanced diet can also improve your general health, and making changes doesn't mean giving up all the foods you like. It's about getting the amount and balance right.
This is where I normally start soft shopping with bananas on the fruit side.
The three most important things you can do is eat more fruit, vegetables and fibre, cut down on saturated fat and eat less salt. To get the vitamins and minerals your body needs, you should aim to eat a variety of at least 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. These can be fresh, frozen, dried or canned. Along with fruit and vegetables, bread, potatoes, rice, pasta or cereals should make up the main part of your meal, and whenever possible, try to eat whole grain varieties. Remember, if there's too much cholesterol in your blood, fatty deposits can build up in the coronary arteries, which can lead to coronary heart disease and put you at risk of having another heart attack. People who've had a heart attack, have coronary heart disease or are at risk of these conditions should aim for a total cholesterol level of under 4 millimoles per litre. Try to include oats, beans and pulses in your diet, as these, along with fruit and vegetables, contain soluble fibre which can help lower cholesterol levels. Reducing the total amount of fat you eat and replacing some saturated fat with monounsaturated fats will also improve your cholesterol levels and help to protect your heart. Try to cut back on things like cakes, biscuits and pastries, which are high in saturated fat, and go for low-fat dairy products. Processed foods can also be high in saturated fats and salt, so get into the habit of reading the labels before you buy. Reducing the amount of salt you eat will help to keep your blood pressure down. You shouldn't have more than a total of 6 grams per day, and there's enough salt hidden in the foods we already eat without us adding any more when we cook or at the table. Eating oily fish once or twice a week can help to improve the chances of survival after a heart attack. It may also help to reduce your level of triglycerides, another fatty substance found in the blood, and prevent clots from forming in your coronary arteries.
Well, that's good for you. Mackerel. I never used to eat a lot of fish before I had my heart problems, but now I eat quite a lot of fish and I really enjoy it.
Eating a healthy, balanced diet will help improve your sugar levels if you have diabetes and reduce the risk of developing it in the first place. It will also help you to maintain a healthy body weight, which will keep your blood pressure down and reduce the workload on your heart.
It's not over. Just change your lifestyle. A bit of change doesn't do any harm. I still go out for meals, but I don't eat as much as I used to. And I keep going to the gym 3 times a week and keeping fit.
A lot of people enjoy a drink or two, and there's no reason why you should deprive yourself of the odd glass as long as you avoid excess.
Cheers, lads. All the best.
Moderate drinking between 1 and 2 units of alcohol a day may offer some protection against coronary heart disease, but there's no case for non-drinkers to start drinking. However, drinking more than the sensible limits does not protect the heart and can actually lead to heart muscle damage, high blood pressure and other diseases. Men should drink no more than 3 to 4 units a day, women no more than 2 to 3 units. These guidelines apply whether you drink every day, once or twice a week, or just occasionally. Physical activity is great for your heart, and it cuts the risk of developing coronary heart disease in half. Being more active helps to reduce the risk of having a stroke, lowers the blood pressure, improves your cholesterol levels, helps manage your weight and controls diabetes. It can also help relieve feelings of stress and anxiety and increase feelings of well-being. The activity needs to be aerobic, which means using the muscles in your arms, legs and back rhythmically and steadily so your breathing and heart rate increase. Aim to do 30 minutes of moderate intensity activity at least 5 times a week. But remember, if you've recently had a heart attack, it's important to start slowly and gradually build up to this level over a period of time. Going to a cardiac rehabilitation program is a good way of making sure you start exercising at a level that's safe for you. However, when you come to the end of your program, make sure you continue to be physically active on a regular basis.
I probably wouldn't have ended up doing this actually, but because I've had to do it, because of the heart problem that I had, I'm going to carry on doing it. And because I enjoy it so much anyway, it's really good.
If you'd like some support after rehab, there's a variety of different community-based schemes you can join all over the country. Run by local NHS trusts, they're usually linked by the British Association for Cardiac Rehabilitation. They have qualified trainers who understand how exercise can help reduce the risk of further heart problems, and they'll work out a safe exercise programme for you. Remember, you don't have to join a gym to increase your fitness levels. You can gain all the benefits just by taking part in normal everyday activities. Many people who do include more exercise in their lives say it makes them feel better and they notice an improvement in their mood and self-confidence.
This consumer update is brought to you by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Making healthy food choices is one of many lifestyle changes that can help reduce your risk for getting heart disease, the #1 killer in the United States.
Making healthier food choices doesn't mean you need to exclude your favorite foods, and one of the most valuable tools you have to help you make these choices is the food label.
The nutrition facts label found on most foods will tell you if a product is low in saturated fat or sodium or high in fiber. If you eat a product that is high in sodium or saturated fat, choose other foods that are low in these nutrients to keep your daily intake in balance. To help prevent heart disease, choose foods with no trans fat, less saturated fat, less sodium, salt, less cholesterol, fewer calories, and more fiber.
Some foods carry health claims, including statements that the product may reduce the risk of heart disease. FDA allows such claims when they are supported by strong scientific evidence.
Health claims allowed by FDA include diets low in sodium may reduce your risk of high blood pressure. Diets low in saturated fat and cholesterol may reduce your risk of heart disease. And diets high in dietary or soluble fiber may reduce your risk of heart disease. Use the food label to compare foods quickly and easily. Ingredients in the largest amounts are listed first. Also, a package may contain more than 1 serving, so be sure to check the serving size. If a serving is 1 cup and you eat a package with 2 cups, you are consuming 2 times the calories and nutrients listed. Finally, here are a few take-home tips for healthy eating. Choose lean meats and poultry and bake, broil, or grill it. In a restaurant, choose steamed, grilled, or broiled dishes. Most of the fats you eat should be polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, such as those found in fish, nuts, and vegetable oils. Pick foods that provide dietary fiber, like fruit, beans, vegetables, and whole grains. For more on this and other health topics, visit fda.gov/consumer.
Whether you grab a handful on the go, add it to your granola, or sprinkle a few in a salad, pecans are versatile, delicious, and good for you. Kara Rosenblum is a registered dietitian with Go South Fresh from the southern U.S. and says pecans are now being widely touted for their nutritional benefits, specifically their antioxidant properties.
Researchers out of California's Loma Linda University have shown that adding just a handful of pecans to the diet each day, which is about 20 halves, can help reduce the risk of heart disease. Pecans are linked with heart health because of their unique combination of vitamin E, antioxidants, plant sterols, and monounsaturated fats. Specifically, pecans may help lower triglyceride levels and may help lower LDL or bad cholesterol levels, which can help decrease the risk of developing heart disease.
In the largest, most comprehensive analysis of foods to date, researchers in the U.S. measured the antioxidant capacity of more than 100 foods, including fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains. Pecans came out amongst on top.
Antioxidants are substances which can help protect the body's cells against the damage that can cause aging, heart disease, and cancer. U.S. researchers have found that pecans rank the highest of all nuts in terms of their antioxidant content. And when compared with 100 other foods, pecans rank in the top 20, just behind a variety of apples, beans, and different berries for their protective antioxidant content.
And the versatility of pecans make them a natural addition to any meal from breakfast through dinner.
Pecans are so versatile. You can use them in your baked goods or trail mix. You can sprinkle them on top of soup or salads. You can crush them up and add them to pancake batter, or try them as a nutty coating for your chicken, pork, or fish. They make an excellent addition to any kitchen.
And to enjoy pecans at their best, make sure you store them properly.
When buying pecans in the shell, you want to look for smooth shells. If you're buying pecans already shelled, you want to look for plump nuts that are uniform in both size and color. Either way, you want to store them in an airtight container in the refrigerator for up to 9 months or the freezer for up to 2 years. And frozen pecans do not need to be thawed prior to use.
For more information, recipes, and storage tips, check out GoSouthFresh.com. Sherry Demetarco reporting.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Summer, registered dietitian, and I'm here today to show you how you can lower your risk for this nation's #1 killer, heart disease. The good news is you can make a huge dent in your risk and prevent this by making a few simple changes in how you eat and how much you exercise. And those changes aren't monumental and they don't cost much. So the first change is you need to manage your weight. We know that being overweight is a huge risk factor for not only heart disease, but some of the risk factors for heart disease like diabetes and high blood pressure. So to do that, look for foods that are what are called low energy dense foods. Those are foods that fill you up and satisfy you, but they do it on few calories. And there are foods like fruits, vegetables, broth-based soups like Campbell's Healthy Request chicken and egg noodle soup, which is loaded with nutrients and has a full serving of vegetables in every serving and only costs 50 cents a serving. The second thing is look for low sodium foods, foods like low sodium V8 juice, which has 2 servings of vegetables in every glass. The third thing is, speaking of vegetables, load the plate with colorful fruits and vegetables. You need at least 8 servings a day, and you can do that by including at least 1 or 2 at every meal and snack. You start with the produce department. That means carrots, sweet potatoes, broccoli, asparagus, strawberries, oranges, but you can also go to the freezer case because plain vegetables are just as nutritious as fresh, and they wait for you so they don't spoil. So load the freezer case with green peas, carrots, broccoli, spinach, and the like. And finally, the fourth diet rule is look for nutrient-packed foods. Foods like whole grains, those fruits and vegetables, nuts, foods that have heart-healthy fats in them, like the omega-3 fats found in salmon. One of my favorite meals is to take whole grain pasta, top it with Prego Heart Smart Italian sauce, and then doctor it up a little bit with some extra broccoli and carrots. It's simple, it's economical, and it doesn't get any heart healthier than that. And finally, the other thing to do is you've got to exercise, but it doesn't have to be, a marathon. You can start with as little as 10 minutes a day of brisk walking with the idea that you'll work your way up to a half an hour or more over the course of 6 months or a year. If you follow some of these diet and exercise tips, I promise it'll lower your risk for this nation's #1 killer disease. And if you want more information, you can go to campbellsaddressyourheart.com or goredforwomen.org, the American Heart Association's website. Take care.
exercise for a healthy heart, you must include cardiovascular activity into your day. This is Alice Monsart, and I'd like to give you some tips on including cardiovascular exercises into your program. Cardiovascular exercises recommended by the American Council of Sports Medicine are walking, jogging, swimming, biking, jumping rope, anything that's a continuous activity for 20 to 30 minutes a day. Now, as a beginner exerciser, that's difficult to accomplish. So start off slow and add gradual intensity and more frequency and more duration each time you go out to exercise. So if I'm going to begin a walking program, then I might say, hey, once a week I can go out, or twice a week I can go out for about 15 minutes a day. Great, that's where you start. But over the period of time, you're going to have to overload your system and ask your heart and lungs, once they get used to what you're doing, to do more. That's what we call overload and or progression. So if you can start out with 2 days a week and then incorporate more days a week, 4 days a week, or start with 20 minutes and eventually work up to 30. Again, the American College of Sports Medicine recommends accumulating up to 30 minutes of continuous activity every day. If you do that, you're going to see a great difference in your overall lung capacity, and your heart rate should drop down. So this is Alice Monsart. I'm going to encourage you to get active every day for at least 30 minutes.
Does keeping your heart healthy sound like something you'd be interested in? Every year, heart disease is the #1 cause of death in the United States and throughout the world. It is responsible for almost 30% of America's death rate each year. Add strokes to that number, and you have over 750,000 Americans die every single year from cardiovascular disease. Remember this health preamble. If what you eat will cause it to get fat, it will cause cancer. If it will cause cancer, it will cause diabetes. If it will cause diabetes, it will cause cardiovascular disease. What causes heart attacks? The root cause of all cardiovascular disease is what scientists call hypoascorbemia, which is a lack of ascorbate. The endothelial layer, or innermost lining of arteries, becomes watery and leaks due to this detrimental deficiency of ascorbate. Then, the body's defense mechanism kicks in. Lipoprotein A is formed to patch the cracks in artery walls. Circulating immune complexes in the area cause the artery walls to swell. Fibrin forms a net over the injured area, and trash gets caught in the net. Examples of this trash are heavy metals and undigested or indigestible food, which attach to the fibrin web and continue to build up. Plaque, or inflammation, continues to build and narrow the openings through which blood can travel in the artery walls. Non-bioavailable calcium, like pasteurized dairy products, calcium carbonate, and coral calcium, harden the plaque buildup. Luckily, there is a warning sign that lets you know when you should be worried. Hypertension, or high blood pressure, is an early sign of plaque buildup, since the main cause is plaque that is built up in the kidneys. The heart has to work that much harder to force the blood through the tiny openings you have created, which is the reason the pressure in your blood is elevated. If you ignore this warning, it may lead to a lot worse: congestive heart disease, angina, myocardial infarction. These are all caused by spontaneous formation of fibrin, or a clot that breaks loose from the plaque, that causes the already narrow opening to close up. A stroke is the same process, but instead of plaque building up in the arteries of your heart, it is building up in the blood vessels in your brain. When the blood supply gets cut off to your brain, like when it gets cut off in the heart, that area starts to die.
In our culture, numbers are everywhere. Phone numbers, bank numbers, license numbers. Every day we remember and use many of these numbers over and over again. But doctors at Mayo Clinic say most of us don't know or even think about the most important numbers, our heart health numbers. Here are the numbers you need to know to prevent a heart attack or stroke.
14. Go.
Like cribbage, Sudoku, or the lottery, improving your heart health is a numbers game.
To have fun with knowing your numbers and trying to make them better.
Mayo Clinic Dr. Gerald Fletcher says to play the game, you have to know the 4 most important numbers to good heart health. First, get your blood pressure taken.
It causes heart failure, it causes hearts to get weak, it causes heart attack, and it causes stroke.
Your number should be no higher than 120/80. 115/75 is better yet. Next, cholesterol.
The cholesterol level is vastly important. The higher it is, more likely you are to have a heart attack, or a blockage of your arteries, or some problem with the circulation to the heart.
Keep your total cholesterol lower than 200. Now, blood sugar. Your level should be 100 or lower. If it's higher than that, you're at increased risk of adult-onset diabetes. And finally, waist circumference. For women, your waist should be no larger than 35 inches. For men, 40 inches. And remember, it's a game. Challenge yourself to learn these numbers and do what you can to get them where they ought to be.
So many people can control their blood pressure, as well as their blood cholesterol, as well as their waist circumference, as well as their glucose, if they exercise properly, control their weight, and live a healthy lifestyle.
Lifestyle choices that can help you win the heart numbers game. Sometimes no matter how hard you try to control your numbers with diet and exercise, it just doesn't work. In that case, there are medications that can help. You also can't do anything about your family history. If your relatives have heart problems, you might too. So be sure to work with a healthcare provider to help you get those numbers where they should be. For Medical Edge, I'm Vivian Williams.
In this morning's Health Watch, flossing. A new study shows people with gum disease are twice as likely to suffer from heart disease. So can flossing actually help save your life? Here's our medical correspondent, Dr. Jennifer Ashton. Good morning.
Good morning, Harry.
What could gum disease possibly have anything to do with heart disease?
Well, for the first thing, when you think about going to the dentist, most people just think about our teeth. Actually, the unsung hero of the mouth and the thing that is intimately tied to our cardiovascular health is actually the gums. Estimates are that 80% of the country suffers from periodontal disease, and there are several theories about how that can cause heart disease. One is infection that then targets the arteries in our heart. The other
and
one
maybe
is
it's just a sign of general bad health.
Could be, that is correct. And
All right.
also inflammation that comes from our mouth. Bacteria then seeds our bloodstream. Very important to take care of our gums.
So what are the signs of gum disease?
Anything from, you get that inflammation around the tooth, you could have bleeding, you could have bad breath, you could have pockets. People really need to go not just once a year, but 2 or 3 times a year and have your dentist check for these things.
Can you turn it around? That's the most important thing. If you're waking up this morning, you say, ooh, what can I do about this? Can something be done?
You can, and we need to remember periodontal disease can start as young as age 20. So the first thing is the things that are good for our gums are good for our general health. We want to floss every day. At least once a day. You want to brush your teeth at least twice a day. Visit the dentist at least twice a year, if not 3 times a year. Don't smoke because that's bad for our gums as well as our heart. And eating a balanced diet, not because our food affects our gums, but because obesity is linked to periodontal disease.
Here's some signs and symptoms of a heart attack. So if you're out in the world and about on the street, this is something you want to be aware of. Chest pains or chest tightness. Somebody will be having difficulty breathing, or they'll say that they feel like an elephant is stuffed on their chest. A headache, like a vice grip, like 2 hands are on either side and they're pushing in. Nausea, feeling sick, possibly even throwing up. Lightheadedness. An electrical shock, possibly happening from the left hand into the left forearm, into the left arm, into the shoulder, and then into the chest. Some sort of jaw pain, soreness, or stiffness. Back pain, most likely between the shoulder blades. And if you're a woman, these are 3 things that you must keep in mind because they may happen with or without the other symptoms. Dizziness, nausea, and anxiety.
Some health advice, don't smoke, eat right, and exercise, applies to women of any age. But other rules change every time a woman hits a new decade.
I think that all women are at risk for heart disease no matter how old they are. And the younger you are,
the better off you are if you start taking care of your heart.
If you're in your 30s, Good Housekeeping says you should be getting a blood cholesterol test every 5 years to determine if you're at risk for coronary artery disease.
60% have at least one high risk factor for heart disease. It might be elevated cholesterol, or excess weight, or they smoke, and this triples their odds of having a heart attack within the next 30 years.
Women in their 40s should schedule a stress echocardiogram or a nuclear imaging stress test to provide key warnings about your heart's health. As you enter your 50s, make sure you know the subtle, surprising symptoms of a heart attack.
Unusual fatigue, pain in the abdomen, heaviness in the chest, shortness of breath, and nausea.
And there's evidence that women 60 and over might lower their heart attack risk by taking cholesterol-lowering statins, even if their cholesterol is normal. I'm Terry Anser for Good Housekeeping Reports.
Coach Kendra is an expert nutritionist, a professional personal trainer, and she's certified by the American Association of Drugless Practitioners. Today, Coach Kendra has some tips for living a heart-healthy life.
Even though 20 million Americans suffer from some sort of heart disease, simple changes in diet and exercise can help you to keep your heart healthy. The leading cause of cardiovascular disease is high cholesterol, which affects a staggering 100 million Americans. Let's take a moment to understand what cholesterol is. Fatty foods are the primary source of cholesterol for most people. When someone has too much cholesterol in their blood, it can lead directly to a buildup of plaque in your arteries and can lead to a heart attack. There are two types of cholesterol. LDL, or bad cholesterol, is the type of cholesterol which causes plaque buildup and clogs arteries. HDL, also known as good cholesterol, does not contribute to plaque buildup and actually removes cholesterol from the bloodstream. Now, I'm going to tell you about foods that will boost your good cholesterol, or HDL, and also guide you away from foods that will raise your overall and LDL cholesterol levels. Certain foods are full of good fats that contribute to good HDL cholesterol. For example, nuts and seeds, such as walnuts and pumpkin seeds, are great sources of oils to increase your HDL levels. Also, avocado, olive oil, salmon, and sardines are other great options to include in your diet to increase your HDL levels. But some foods are not so good for you. If you're trying to keep your LDL levels low, you should avoid fried foods like French fries, donuts, and fried chicken. It's also a good idea to avoid foods like cookies, cakes, and foods that contain trans fats. Exercise is also an important part of any plan to lower your cholesterol levels. Let me demonstrate some exercises you can do in your own home that can help you on your path to heart health. The next time you pick something up, try to use your legs to lift it. Make sure to keep your abdominal muscles engaged to avoid feeling it in your lower back. Repeat 15 to 20 times at a fast pace to increase your heart rate. 2 points on the floor and shuffle to one side, taking one step in between the sides. Lightly touch the ground and go back to the other side. Repeat 10 to 30 times, squatting deeper for more cardio effect, and repeat the set 2 to 4 times. Make cardio health the center of your plan for a long and healthy life. If you want to learn more about heart-healthy eating and living, check out some of the other videos in this library to deepen your knowledge.
Want to learn more? Check out other videos and sources on this site for more information.
How to follow a heart-healthy diet. You can reduce your risk of coronary disease just by eating certain foods. You will need high-fiber foods, nuts, fruits and vegetables, an apple a day, 1 or 2 daily alcoholic beverages, foods fortified with sterols or stanols, and olive oil. Optional, foods beginning with B. Step 1. Choose high-fiber foods, starting with a bowl of cereal for breakfast that contains at least 3 grams of fiber. Every 10 grams of dietary fiber added to your daily diet can reduce your risk of heart disease by 27%. Think beet, beans, berries, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts. Bread too, as long as it's whole grain. Step 2. Eat a handful, about 2 ounces of unsalted nuts as often as 5 times a week. Walnuts, almonds, hazelnuts, peanuts, pecans, pine nuts, and pistachios are all loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, which raise good cholesterol and lower bad. According to a study, replacing 1 daily serving of carbohydrates with nuts can reduce your heart disease risk by 30%. Replace an equal serving of saturated fat like meat or cheese with nuts, and you may slash it as much as 45%. Step 3. Eat at least 6 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. Going from less than 3 servings a day to more than 5 can lower your risk of heart disease by 17%. Step 4. Snack on apples. Besides being a great source of fiber, an apple a day can keep a heart attack at bay, thanks to high levels of the antioxidant quercetin. Study participants who ate 3 apples a day for 3 months reduced their cholesterol by a minimum of 20 points. Step 5. Enjoy an alcoholic beverage every day, 2 if you're a man. It can cut your risk of dying of a heart attack and reduce your chances of having a stroke. Just remember to always drink in moderation. A 12-ounce beer, 4 ounces of wine, 1.5 ounces of 80-proof spirits, or 1 ounce of 100-proof spirits constitutes 1 drink. Step 6. Eat foods fortified with sterols and stanols, plant substances that fight cholesterol. Common products that often contain these include orange juice, yogurt, salad dressing, and butter substitute spread. Step 7. Aim to replace butter or margarine with 2 tablespoons of cholesterol-lowering olive oil per day. Did you know, in a long-term study, optimistic people were 23% less likely to die from cardiovascular disease than pessimists?
Ask women about the greatest danger to their health, and most will say cancer. But they're wrong. It's heart disease.
Dropping just 10% of your weight will cut your risk of heart disease.
Heart risk doubles when your waistline expands beyond 35 inches.
You can find out how to measure your waist properly at goodhousekeeping.com.
Adding whole grains to your diet can slash your bad LDL cholesterol and raise your good HDL cholesterol. Smoking as few as 1 to 4 cigarettes a day can triple a woman's chances of a heart attack.
Depression can raise your risk of heart disease significantly. So if you've been feeling down and it's lasted a couple of weeks, talk to your doctor or see a mental health counselor.
And Good Housekeeping says regular 10-minute walks can cut a woman's heart attack risk up to 50%. I'm Elizabeth McGuire for Good Housekeeping Reports.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mehmet Oz. February is Heart Month, and here at New York Presbyterian, we are teaming up to help you live heart healthy. How are you going to do that? We're going to make you the world expert on your body. First off, you got to exercise. Listen, I have traveled all over the planet looking at places where people live a long time, and guess what? They share one common attribute: daily, vigorous physical activity. So go out and get your exercise. I recommend 30 minutes a day. Get your heart rate up a little bit. Walk a little faster, not just stroll in the park. But if you get your heart rate up and rev those engines, you'll live longer and live better. Secondly, you got to eat healthy. And what does that mean? I'm not taking away all the foods you love. You want to get 7 servings of primarily vegetables, but they can be fruits too. If you do that, you can add whatever else you want. Frankly, you won't be very hungry. So not only will you lose weight, but you'll live healthier to boot. Takes me to my next step. If you can maintain a healthy weight, you'll do lots of great things for your body to avoid chronic illnesses. You know why? Because when you get extra weight on board, especially that big belly, that beer belly we see so often, if you got too much belly fat, it does 3 things. That omentum, sounds like momentum without the M, that omentum fat puts pressure on your kidneys, and your kidneys regulate your blood pressure. So without a normal blood pressure, you're pounding holes, like back in that wall there behind me. Once I pounded a hole back there, I got to fix it. What do I fix it with? I need plaster. What's the body's plaster? It's cholesterol. Now, if you got belly fat on, that belly fat also poisons your liver. So you make more of the lousy LDL cholesterol, so you get cheap spackling in that hole back there I just made with my high blood pressure, and that's a setup for atherosclerotic disease. And if you smoke, it's even more of a problem, because smoking is like taking little nails and pounding holes in the walls of your lining of the arteries. And when you get those holes, you got to fix them too. More of that bad cholesterol goes in there, you got more problems. finally, that belly fat blocks the ability of insulin to work. That means you're going to have high blood sugars. Now get this. Having a high blood sugar is like having broken pieces of glass shrapnel scraping the delicate Teflon linings of your arteries. And you're going to have more of that atherosclerosis that we have to do surgery on all the time. And you don't want to be there. So partner with your doctor. Remember, the word doctor means teacher. We're supposed to educate you. And if you're a good student, you'll take your notes.
We're beginning to pay a lot more attention to making sure that people get enough omega-3 fish oil in the diet or in supplement form. Omega-3s are oils that are part of the diet and are found in salmon, herring, mackerel, sardines, Arctic char, and trout. Most people don't get many of these oily fishes, and consequently almost all people are deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. These are essential fatty acids that are very important to brain function, nerve conduction, heart function, are important in skin and hair, and they really are an essential part of bodily function in terms of helping to conduct electrical impulses along nerves. So without these, people have problems with depression, people have problems with electrical abnormalities of the heart, arrhythmias. So it's very important to make sure that everyone gets omega-3s. Now, you can get omega-3s from flaxseed oil, but flaxseed after the age of 40 is not converted into the appropriate omega-3s. Flaxseed is an 18 carbon omega-3 and it needs to be converted into a 20 and 22 carbon omega-3. And the enzyme that does that really isn't around after the age of 40. So it's not going to be obtainable in people over the age of 40 via flaxseed. Walnuts have some omega-3s, but really not enough, and they're pretty calorie dense. So really fish are the only source of omega-3s. It's also important to realize that there's a ratio between the omega-3s and the omega-6s. Omega-6s come from vegetable oils, corn oil, soybean oil, that sort of thing. We get plenty of that stuff from just about everything we eat, and we get very little omega-3s. And that throws off communication between cells if we don't have a good ratio, and consequently we're going to be hearing a lot more about that in the future, and this can lead to cancer risk, etc. So it's important to have a couple of servings of salmon per week, and this should be wild salmon, not farmed salmon, because wild salmon is free of PCBs and dioxin, which are carcinogenic. We can get different kinds of omega-3s from the health food store also, which are purified to satisfy this need of having a PCB dioxin-free omega-3. Should probably have about a gram a day of omega-3 in supplement form if we're not getting salmon a couple of times per week. It's important for guys to take omega-3s, especially if there's any risk of heart disease. Omega-3s are very important in conduction of electrical impulses through the heart, and it was found in an Italian study where theoretically the guys were taking a significant amount of oily fish in Italy, where people given supplements of omega-3s had a 30% decreased risk of sudden death from heart disease when they were put on omega-3s over a 2-year period. So the idea that you can prevent sudden arrhythmias, such as ventricular tachycardia, which causes sudden death, is very relevant to the idea that omega-3s help to increase the likelihood of good electrical conduction through the heart. So at 60 cents a day for purified fish oil, a gram a day of EPA and DHA, the two relevant omega-3s, can go a long way towards keeping people out of trouble from the cardiac standpoint.
Now we turn to what's called a silent heart attack. Researchers are now saying that kind of event may be far more common and more deadly than anyone knew. Our medical correspondent, Dr. Jennifer Ashton, is here with the very latest on that. Good morning, Dr.
Good morning,
Ashton.
Julie.
All right, what is a silent heart attack, and do we know we're having one when we're having one?
Well, that's a scary thing. It's both silent and potentially deadly. It's the type of heart attack that doesn't typically present with chest pain and shortness of breath. So you as a patient might be unaware that you're having one, and it doesn't leave its signature on the EKG after the fact, so your doctor might not be able to tell that you've had one. That is all changing now because a recent study, even though it's a small one out of Duke University, is using an MRI technology, which has been around for a while, to actually get a picture of the damaged heart muscle. So we might be able to pick this up earlier.
Wow, that's amazing. So does it mean that this technology, which is not new, does it mean it's going to be used in this new way?
Well, for something to be considered a good screening test, it really needs to be cheap, it needs to be fast, and it needs to be easily accessible. MRI is really none of those things, but it is accurate. So I think the cardiologists are going to be looking more in the future as to how they're going to incorporate this and amongst what subset of patients.
Is it something right now that's so new that if I'm at home listening to this and I know, I'm at risk of heart disease, I can go into my doctor and say, I want this?
Probably not at this point. And again, if you're high risk, we already know you're high risk. The real utility possibly in the future will be for the intermediate risk people. That's the challenge for the doctors, to figure out how we're going to use this as a screening test. The challenge for the patient is to figure out how to reduce the things that put us at risk for heart disease. That's the key.
Define the people in the group who would be considered intermediary.
So you might have a family history of heart disease, you might be obese, you might be a smoker, high cholesterol, diabetic. If you have all of those things, we know you're in a very high-risk group. So those people really don't need to be tested. It's more the intermediate group.
Dr. Jennifer Ashton, thanks so much.
What causes a heart attack? A heart attack, or myocardial infarction, means that there is death of some of the heart muscle. This is caused by a blood clot blocking an artery and resulting in a lack of blood supply. As we get older, the smooth inner lining of the heart arteries becomes damaged and thickened due to the accumulation of fatty material called atheroma, made up predominantly of cholesterol. This process is known as atherosclerosis. Previously, it was thought that a progressive narrowing in the coronary artery caused heart attacks. It is now clear that this process can sometimes occur in coronary arteries that have minor narrowings when cracks or fissures develop in plaques. The exposed damaged inner lining of the coronary artery wall causes blood cells called platelets to stick to the damaged area and start the formation of blood clots within the artery. These blood clots prevent the flow of blood, vital for the heart muscle to survive. If the artery is blocked for more than a few minutes, the muscle cells beyond the blockage may become permanently damaged. It remains unknown why heart attacks happen when they do, sometimes affecting people who seem to have been perfectly well. Certain factors are known to increase the risk of having a heart attack. Smoking, family history of heart disease at a young age, high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol levels, lack of physical exercise, diabetes. The heart muscle that is injured by this blockage may become irritable and can cause irregularity in the heart rhythm. This can be fatal by causing a cardiac arrest, even when it appears that very little heart muscle has been damaged. This is why it is very important, if you think you are having a heart attack, you should call for an ambulance. If, having taken GTN, 2 puffs at 5-minute intervals up to 15 minutes, your symptoms have not resolved, you should call an ambulance without delay. The damaged heart muscle eventually heals with a scar, but may not be able to pump quite as much as it did before. In the majority of patients, however, there is enough good muscle left for the heart to function adequately, and for recovery to be complete.
Heart disease in the coronary arteries occurs when they become clogged from a buildup of cells, fat, and cholesterol. This buildup is called plaque. As the inside of the coronary arteries gather plaque and become narrow, they decrease the flow of blood and oxygen to the heart muscle. Without proper blood and oxygen, the heart muscle eventually weakens and begins to wear out. This decreases the heart's ability to pump normally. When you are doing an activity that requires physical effort, your heart muscle demands more blood and oxygen. But if the heart is not pumping effectively, this need cannot be met. As a result, you may experience symptoms such as angina or chest pain, irregular heartbeats, and shortness of breath. These symptoms may indicate heart disease.
The structure of the heart. The heart is a muscular organ located behind and to the left of the breastbone or sternum and between the lungs. It is shaped like an upside-down pear and is about the size of your fist. Contained within a sac called the pericardium, it sits on top of the diaphragmatic muscle and is surrounded by the rib cage. These structures all serve to protect the heart. The heart is made up of 4 chambers, 2 small chambers called atria and 2 larger chambers called ventricles. The left ventricle is the largest and strongest chamber in the heart. As it is required to pump blood to the rest of the body, it needs to have more muscle than the other chambers. The heart muscle itself is called the myocardium. Coordination of blood flow through the heart is maintained by electrical activity and 4 heart valves. These valves open and close to allow blood to flow in the correct direction only. The 4 heart valves are the tricuspid valve, which controls blood flow between the right atrium and right ventricle, the pulmonary valve, which lies between the right ventricle and pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery takes deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs. The mitral valve, which allows oxygen-rich blood from the lungs to flow between the left atrium and the left ventricle. The aortic valve, which controls blood flow between the left ventricle and the main blood vessel leaving the heart, called the aorta. The rhythmic contraction of the heart is governed by an electrical impulse.